I could be wrong, but is this your first Heroes World Championship where you work directly from the event?
I was in Seoul, so I was in Korea as well for like Heroes, but for Heroes is at least the first, it's the first one in Europe that I have. So yeah, it's pretty cool to actually like be in Europe again on the DreamHack, because the last time I was in Sweden was I think 2012. That was for StarCraft back then, so it was quite some time ago. So it's good to be back here.
Do you like how Blizzard works with tournaments? I mean, the organization and other things, or they have something else to work with?
I actually kind of like the way that they're doing it right now. There were a lot of upsets or like problems that we had earlier in the year, and they are currently trying to improve everything. So from tournament to tournament, there were always improvements made. Maybe not all of it visible to the public, but at least when you see it from our point of view, there's a lot of improvements, and they know that they have still things that they need to change. So I really feel they're doing a good job with it. And the tournament format, I like that as well. Some people have been saying they would prefer a league in Europe. Personally, I don't think that a league is really the right approach. It works in Korea because everything is so centered around Seoul. For Europe to make a league work, it would have to be very difficult. You would have to throw a lot of money on it. So the tournament system overall, I enjoy that, and I think that Blizzard is doing a good job improving with the problems that we had in the past.
It seems Asia teams dominate at this tournament as well as the last time. Why do you think it happens? Why other regions can be better?
I actually think that the regions are really improving a lot. I totally agree. Asia is still very dominant, and they've shown it, especially the Koreans are very strong. I think it's mostly because they have a completely different environment and infrastructure. Team houses, for example, for the better teams are the norm, whereas in Europe it's very difficult to make that happen, also in North America, because the distances of where people live are so huge, whereas in Korea, esports is basically Seoul. It's all centered on one city, and that gives them a huge edge. But if you look at the results that we got, a lot of the Chinese teams were actually already beat. Both of the European teams were able to take out X-Team, for example, so that was already a huge step forward. And if you look at the games that we've seen between the European teams and the Korean teams, the Koreans won, but it was usually like one or two things that really made all the difference. So you can tell that from the last championship in Seoul to this one, the gap is closing a little bit. And I think this is something, if the Western scene works hard, they can even like take a step further and maybe at some point really just overcome that huge problem that currently the Korean teams are for us, because let's face it, those guys are pretty good.
Okay. Let's talk about you. How long have you been a commentator?
16 years by now. So I started roughly in 2000. I was still at school back then. It was shortly before I went to university, and back then it was all audio. So we had like no video streams that didn't exist because the bandwidth wasn't there. So we did basically radio shows for all of the games. It was with WarCraft 3 back then, and after WarCraft 3 I started with StarCraft 2. That was when I was still at, actually like StarCraft 2 came out when I was just done with university. During all that time I still did WarCraft 3 commentating, at the beginning also in German, by the way. And then later on with StarCraft 2 I started to switch to English, and then I got the job offer in Korea, worked there for 3 years, moved back, and with the move I started to slowly go straight into Heroes right from the start. And when then for StarCraft 2 the new add-on came out, Legacy of the Void, I decided to go full-time Heroes, because I personally believe you can't be on a really high level in both games.
Yeah, you have such a big experience.
Yeah.
It's great. At what moment the commentator can be called a professional?
I think if you can make a living with it, then you're definitely a professional commentator. So there's like two aspects that you can like look at it. You can make a living with esports from a pure online perspective if you focus on like online tournaments as well. Of course, always depending a little bit on the living standards in your country, I would say. And then there's always another step when you're invited to the official tournaments and you're attending a lot on the offline tournaments. But a professional commentator, for me personally, is someone that can make a living from commentating only. So not like streaming and having fun, showing your own gameplay, but just really casting tournaments, be it on an offline stage or on an online stage.
Do you want to try yourself like a commentator, not only the sports, maybe I mean sport, physical sport, or something else?
I don't really think so, because in the German language, and from what I know also in English, most of the style that is being used to commentate sports is rather, I don't want to call it boring, but it's very different. Like, it's not as high energetic. If you watch soccer, for example, the commentating is usually like really slow paced, and it's a bit different. If you then again, of course, jump into the Italian language or Spanish and you listen to a soccer match over there, they go completely crazy. But nah, the esports is just where it's at. I like that too much. Heroes is awesome right now. StarCraft was amazing. I loved WarCraft. I still have high hopes that Blizzard at some point is going to drop WarCraft 4, and that would be my dream.
Okay. Can you give some advice to beginners commentator?
As a beginner's commentator,
Yeah.
I feel it's incredibly important that you really put yourself out there. There's always chances of things that you can commentate. There's always weekly tournaments. Oftentimes those are not broadcasted at all, so it's always a good place to start. It's quite easy over the websites to get in touch with the organizers. You can talk to the teams and then jump into these. You need to make sure that your setup is kind of decent. Get a microphone. It doesn't have to be like a super expensive one. There's a couple of like Sennheiser gaming headsets that have a really decent microphone as well. Make sure that you get a good UI for heroes. Ali's Twitter, of course, is like the place to go usually, and just make sure that the basics are being set. Copy from the people that are established, copy from the online commentators that are good, that you watch on a daily basis, see what they do, and then just like copy that part, and then you're basically set to go. And the rest is really just experience and pushing yourself out there.
What do you think about the decline in interest of esports organization in teams of Heroes of the Storm and leaving some professional players and famous media persons from this game?
I actually think it's a problem. I really think it's something that Blizzard has also. They have to recognize it and they have to try and improve it. The way to improve it is really to just show that the interest in heroes is really there. And then we're coming back to the tournament question earlier. The viewership overall, I feel, is slowly rising. The new patch with the ranked system is going to help a lot with streamers, and also like bringing new people in, showing a ranking system, a ladder, where people have actually like an incentive to improve and try to get better. So I think these things are going to make the game more popular. It's going to make it more popular also on Twitch. The viewership is probably going to grow over the next, let's say, like 2-3 months. And once that starts to slowly happen, I feel a lot of those teams are going to take another look, a second look at heroes, and are saying like, okay, back then maybe it was not the right time for us, but right now we have a chance to actually invest, get a good team for like a very cheap salary, low salary, and make that jump again. But of course it's always concerning if you see that big names are pulling out. But I believe that with a bit of effort and all of us just like making it happen here in the direction that Heroes is going, it's definitely going to come back.
Okay. I told you already you have a lot of Russian fans. Yeah. Do you want to say something to them?
My Russian is still very limited.
No,
like, okay.
just say something.
So I'm gonna say it in English. I really hope that you guys enjoy watching the streams. Russian community is absolutely amazing. You have great commentators in Russian as well. Happy Zerg, of course, the workhorse there in Russian. I wish I understood Russian so I could listen to him a couple of times. But I hope that you continue supporting Heroes of the Storm. I hope that you enjoy the shows, and yeah, all the best to you and towards a good future for Heroes of the Storm.
Okay. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the interview.
Yeah.